So the goal of this video is to determine the exact ages of both Goofy and Max according to the Goof Troop continuity. The fact of the matter is that the continuity is so tightly woven that it is actually possible to determine Max's exact age and then reverse engineer everything else in this series based on just that bit of information. This includes exactly when he was conceived, when exactly Goofy attended college, and even what semester was shown in an extremely Goofy movie, and when exactly Max attended high school in a Goofy movie. Now, all of this information hinges on one very specific detail, and that would be the airing of the episode Take Me Out of the Ballgame, which aired on September 5th. Admittedly, this does make the very foundation of all this a bit shaky because each individual person can decide to go with the air date as his birthday or his original introductory video as his true birthday. That said, for the sake of simplifying things just a bit, we're going to go with September 5th as his birthday in this continuity. This gives us an establishing point. The next important note of detail is it is established that Max was 11 and a half at the start of Goof Troop when he and his dad moved to Spoonerville. Another fun little detail is that in a Goofy movie, they started their road trip in Ohio, so this places the functional town of Spoonerville in Ohio. That also makes their trip to California logical because they didn't start there. Back to the topic at hand though. So we're going with September 5th for this continuity. We know he was 11 and a half at the start of the series. This means that he celebrated his 12th birthday in the series continuity. That makes his official birthday in this continuity September 5th, 1980. So far, so good. We're already partway there. Now, in order to not overcomplicate things, we're going to go with the established understanding that the average human pregnancy runs for about 9 months. Usually, it's closer to 40 weeks for full development, but we're going to go with 9 months and treat each month as though it lasted exactly 4 weeks. That's a total of 36 weeks pregnant for those keeping count. That means we're going to go with the idea that Max was a preemie. His being a preemie actually would make good sense for why he was so short in the series of Goof Troop. Here's another reason though. Max being born on September 5th means that he was also born too late in the year to start school on time, and he was either going to have to start a year late or start a year early. And for the sake of simplicity, we're going to go with the idea that Goofy didn't want his son to fall behind, so he started his son 1 year early ahead of schedule. That also made him 1 year younger than his classmates on a technicality. And that absolutely falls in line with Goofy's nature to worry about his son, keeping Goofy in character. Now, it's important to note that primary school on average in the States starts around August 20th. This means that Max would have turned the average age of the grade about 2 weeks into the year. Now, let's backtrack for a moment to Max's birth date. We can reverse engineer his birthday to find out exactly when he was conceived. As established, we're going to call it 9 months and treat each month as though they had exactly 4 weeks. It's also of note that 1980 was a leap year, but it really doesn't affect anything in the grand scheme of things. And yes, I did consider leap years for this because I wanted to make sure that everything would be on track as much as possible. Ultimately, what we can determine is that Max was conceived around December 24th, 1979. That means that Max was a Christmas surprise. Now, we can use this information to determine exactly when Goofy went to college, and by connection, his age. Goofy straight up mentions that he completed 3 years of college in an extremely Goofy movie when he was speaking to the Career Center agent after being fired from his toy factory job. He further mentions that he attended college in the 1970s. He did not earn his degree, and it becomes clear that the reason for that is that he learned he was going to be a father. That means that he determined that he had to go out and get a job and quit college 3 years in, or more specifically 3.5 years in. Now we can determine by the length of an extremely Goofy movie that he was in college for only 1 semester. And we can determine by the color of the leaves at the end of the movie that it was the end of the spring semester when Goofy was driving off with Sylvia. You can determine that by the fact that the color of the leaves were a darker green, which is usually very common in the summertime, as opposed to them having any sort of autumn coloration. Now there is some leaves there in the far right hand side that appear to be orange, but that's more so the reflection of the sunset as they were driving directly into the sunset at the end of the movie. We can also use the state of the cornfield at the start of the movie that Max and his friends accidentally drove through when they were driven off the road to determine that it was early spring at the very least for when they were getting off to college. We can then determine that because Goofy did in fact only attend college for one semester, that he had completed 3.5 years of college back in the 1970s. This does mean that we can determine that Goofy attended college from 1976 through 1979, and that means that Goofy was 18 in 1976 in this continuity. That means that we can determine that he was born in 1958 by Goof Troop lore, as opposed to 1932 when he officially premiered in his initial appearance in the Disney franchise world. Now, unlike Max, who did in fact celebrate his birthday in Goof Troop, Goofy himself never did celebrate his birthday, so we only have his premiere date to serve as his birthday, which was May 25th. As such, Goofy's birthday would be May 25th, 1958. Now, there is one very important note of detail here. An Extremely Goofy movie was released in the year 2000, but if you pause the movie at the very end when Goofy is driving away, you can see that there is a sign that says Graduation Ceremony Preceding 1999. So that does mean that we are watching events that did happen about a year prior, at least by this continuity anyway. We can then use that particular date to determine that Goofy was himself 40, but about to turn 41, as most spring semesters typically end somewhere around late April to early May. And with Goofy being a late May baby, that meant that he had not yet officially turned 41 upon his graduation. And now we're going to go back to Max, because we're not really done with him yet, actually. See, a Goofy movie takes place in 1995, and we can determine that Max started 1 year early based on the information given. And in order for Max to be done with his freshman year of high school in 1995, he would have had to start in 1994. That also means that Max attended high school from 1994 to 1998. It also means that in order to start college in spring of 1999, that he took about a half a year off in order to get good enough in order to compete in the X Games of 1999. That alongside his friends who did the same. It also would kind of explain just a little bit of why, to some degree, Pete was kind of fed up with having PJ around and was ready for him to leave. Now, while Goofy, very much clingy and enjoying having his son around, Pete very much just wanted his kids out of the house as soon as they were old enough. So frankly, this whole characterization completely fits everything that was going on in this movie. We can determine then that he was 17 in high school when he graduated and 18 by the time an Extremely Goofy movie had rolled around. It also does mean, of course, that he started high school in his last few weeks of being 14, and that he was 15 at the end of a Goofy movie. It should be noted that the continuity is so tightly connected that these two movies could only have been released when they were released. No later, no earlier. Any other time would have completely thrown the entire continuity off. That is how tightly woven everything about this series, from a Goof Troop all the way through an Extremely Goofy movie, and even some of the little side bits. Like, for example, there's even continuity within series like The House of Mouse when Max went on a date with Roxanne for an episode, telling you basically that that particular moment at the House of Mouse took place before an Extremely Goofy movie, but directly after a Goofy movie. So it even fits in with the continuity there. Even the Christmas specials, to some degree, have some continuity with a Goofy movie. Because in the first Christmas special, we do get to see Max as a kid, as he was in Goof Troop. And then in the second Christmas special, a few years later, we get to see a point where Max is coming home from college, bringing home his new girlfriend to visit his dad and meet him for the first time. And now there is something of note, and that is that the reason why Max brought home a new girlfriend named Mona in that special is because it is a trivia point of note that they were still uncomfortable with 3D animation at the time of this series special release, that they were uncomfortable with long hair at the time of this special's release, and rather than just simply cut Roxanne's hair short, they decided to give Max a new girlfriend, which effectively made the continuity one where Max and Roxanne broke up at some point in time prior to Max going off to college, which made sense for the Extremely Goofy movie where Roxanne also did not appear. As a result of their having broken up, Max did meet a new girl in college and did bring her home to meet his dad in the second Christmas special. Ultimately, it was established that Goof Troop, having been released in 1992, had this movie, a Goofy movie, released in 1995, that was intended to serve as the finale. However, the popularity was so much that they did ultimately decide to make an Extremely Goofy movie a few years later and just have him go ahead and attend college, whereas it was originally just going to end on his freshman year of high school. Now, we can determine a few things about some other characters, but there is one character of note where it's really pretty much a mystery to exactly what her age was, because she was introduced in an Extremely Goofy movie. And so we don't really have anything we can go off of in terms of what her exact age is or when she was born, except to use the movie as her birth date. But that's not nearly as fun as just guesstimating based on a few context clues. And that character, in fact, would be Sylvia, Goofy's girlfriend, by the end of an Extremely Goofy movie. Now, the biggest issue in all of this is that everybody in these movies and even the series wore very contemporary clothing, so there wasn't really anything to time date anything except for when Goofy did wear his 1970s outfit when he first appeared at college. They then also did wear 1970s outfits during the little dance scene at the little club. But other than that, everyone wore such nondescript clothing, it was really impossible to truly determine exactly how old Sylvia would have been. As for Sylvia in particular, she does wear very just professional clothing while she's at work, and even outside of work, she wears very casual, comfortable clothes that we do only see a handful of times. She wore just casual sweats and a sweater when she was helping Goofy to study for his midterm exam. And she did wear some 1970s clothes when they went on their date. Another key point of detail is that she and Goofy very much bonded over a TV series called Gilligan's Island, which aired from 1964 to 1967. Now, we know that Goofy was born in 1958 in this continuity. As such, he would have been between the ages of 8 and 11 when the series aired, so he would have been just old enough to be able to catch the series if he wanted to. And because this series ran its reruns all the way through the 90s, he was more than capable of catching up on this series and seeing any episodes he would have ever missed. The same is true of Sylvia, though. Even if she was just a few years younger, she still would have been able to catch up on anything that she missed out at any point in time with the constant reruns of Gilligan's Island. So that made their absolute fan club obsession over this series completely make sense. It also really does just make sense for why they were absolutely in love with the 1970s. For them, it was a golden time. It was a time when they were growing up. They were teenagers. That was the point of time where they were just absolutely in their comfort zone growing up. And now, you know how Disney tends to be. Usually, they will establish a male character's age and then will often make the female character a couple years younger just to keep things in a certain very traditional manner and keep things at a certain level of simplicity with how they look at things. So based on that information, knowing that Goofy is 40 in this movie, or at the very least at the end of this movie, knowing that Goofy is 40, we can absolutely determine that Sylvia is between the ages of 36 and 40. And just for the sake of simplicity and a simple argument with how Disney likes to do things, we're just going to go with that she was 38 years old, and that makes her just a couple years younger than Goofy, makes them completely on par with each other, and just that sweet spot for age difference according to Disney standards. Now, honestly, we can absolutely use all of this sort of information to even be able to determine whether PJ was older or younger than Max to a degree. According to what they say in the wiki, he was in fact 11 and a half at the start of Goof Troop as well, and that he did turn 12 in the series. So that would make them the same age. But as far as his actual premiere date, it would have put PJ just a little bit older by just a few months to Max. That does make it so that things are just a little shakier, and you can understand then why I said at the beginning that this foundation from the very beginning is a bit shaky, and so there's not a whole lot that you can fully, absolutely say is 100% accurate. It's also why I did simplify certain dates and certain distances in time to try to make things as non-complicated as we could possibly do. Anyway, I hope you do like this little theory I threw out there. It's something that just popped in my head, and I know plenty of other people have absolutely tackled this sort of thing before. It's not exactly new information. You can find information about people having already done this little theory online. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it anywhere else. But it was just something that I thought about. I needed to get it down out of my head, get it written down, and just go with it and see what could come of it. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you like stuff like this and you want to see us do a little bit more, throw it in the comments. Let us know what you think. We tend to do a bit more chaotic, non-scripted stuff usually here on Animated Chaos, but I decided to just try something a little different just to see what might come of it. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Bye.